Hello, my fellow Americans and the rest of the YouTube viewers. 'Tis I, the Rumpled One. Yeah, I turned the camera the other way. Thought maybe you'd like to see a little bit different background rather than looking at, the firewood in the side of the garage. Anyway, I think I figured something out here. With the advent of social media, everybody gets a voice. Everybody can, basically say what they want to the world. And a lot of people see it. And some people get pretty brave about what they say because they're anonymous. Very few people know who they are. So they can just run off at the mouth. They can, post silly things, post, things that aren't factual. And even some of the fact check sites aren't factual. So it's like you just really have to take everything with a grain of salt. But there's just so much being said that's just inflammatory. I was listening to this local radio talk show yesterday. It comes on every Monday here, and they won't let me on the air anymore. Can you imagine that? Some people might say, I could easily say they're being racist, but no, that's not the real reason I don't believe. It's just that I basically can take apart the talk show hosts, some of their assertions, and I can come up with an argument and sometimes win the debate. I thought he liked the challenge, but I guess he doesn't. But on the other hand, I'm thinking what may have happened is that one or two of his sponsors said that they didn't want to hear me on the show anymore, so that was that. Money talks. Because I guess sometimes my opinion, my ideas aren't the most popular. Imagine that. But yesterday he was on there spouting off a bunch of stuff about Black Lives Matter and about, black on black crime and, just a whole bunch of stuff. And, what's really funny is that, he talks about the lamestream media and the propaganda, calls the local newspapers a fish wrapper and all that garbage can liner. But what's really funny is I would imagine most of his opinions and facts that he has about Black Lives Matter came from that same media that he denigrates all the time. I doubt he went to their website or their Facebook page and read up about them, because he's just basically using the same talking points that he probably heard, on the air, some way, shape, or form. Now, I find that funny, actually. I find it funny every time he says that, he loves to hear, differing opinions, yet when I got on there, and I had a differing opinion about the forefathers, putting it out there, I guess he didn't like that, and that was, maybe that's the main reason I'm not allowed on the show anymore. I just find it amusing. But the problem is that most of this talk isn't solution oriented. All it's doing is fanning the flames. Just one group yelling and pointing fingers at the other group. I don't really know what they're trying to accomplish when they do that. They want to come out with all these truths. It's like, hey, I think the crime statistics have been beaten into the ground. So now it's time to focus on solutions. And as I pointed out before, I may have mentioned it in the video, they want to keep talking about black on black crime. Okay, yes, there's black on black crime. And then they'll say, well, those people know where the criminals are. Okay, they know where the criminals are. Well, if they go to the police and go, hey, the criminals are over there, I mean, they could be standing right there. Those are the criminals. Well, the cops can't do anything unless they see a crime being committed or they have evidence that a crime was being committed. You know, cops just aren't allowed to go up to, well, they're not supposed to just go up to people and do some of these things just because we do have civil rights. We do have rights in this country, you know, guaranteed by a couple of pieces of paper. So if a cop stops you, you know, if a cop stopped me, say I was in some rich white neighborhood and a cop stops me and goes, "What are you doing here? Where are you going?" I have the right to not answer those questions. It's none of his business what I'm doing there or where I'm going. It's just that's just a fact. You know, unless I am violating a law, I have every right to be there. But sometimes this gets lost in the sauce. They go, well, you know, he was saying something about, well, if more black people, you know, commit crimes, well, then the cops, you know, they should be, you know, I guess suspect them. Okay, so I'm black. A lot of black people commit crimes, so you should suspect me. I mean, you know, some of this logic, I don't even know if you can call it logic. Let's just say the way they come to their conclusions is laughable at times. I mean, he was saying, you know, that, you know, black people who don't commit crimes should be upset about black people who do commit crimes. Well, shouldn't black people who don't commit crimes be upset about everybody committing crimes? I mean, this is like saying, you know, you can't say Black Lives Matter, but you can say all lives matter. But when it comes to crime, but now we're going to make a distinction. You see how these guys' arguments just fall apart when you do some critical thinking, critical analysis, deconstruct it? I just don't know where these people come off with this stuff. I mean, I don't know if they actually listen to what they're saying or review what they're saying or think about what they're saying. Because it's just crazy. But you see, this is why I live out here, so I could just stay here. I don't have to deal with this nonsense. I mean, you know, now they're accusing Trump's wife, Melania Trump, for plagiarizing. Well, I was just listening to Rush Limbaugh, and he was, you know, playing, here's what this guy said, here's what Obama said, you know, word for word. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, why don't you just get the dictionary out and say, yeah, every word she used was plagiarized from the dictionary. I mean, I guess some people have nothing better to do than try to tear down somebody else. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, either you like the speech, you believed her, you believed in what she said, or you don't. I mean, there's lots of speeches where people have borrowed words. I mean, they might even have the same thought. So I might have said something in this video that somebody else said yesterday or last week. I may have not even heard it. Does that mean I plagiarized? I mean, you know, when you talk about having, you know, family values and hard work and putting forth the effort and, you know, go to school, get it. I mean, if you say those things, are you plagiarizing? I mean, that's what we get taught. At least I was taught that growing up. So, I mean, really. Were my parents plagiarizing that? I mean, it's like, what's the point? What are they trying to accomplish? Is it just to tear somebody down? I mean, I think that's really a lot of the problem with social media. It's just being used just to tear somebody down. You know, as somebody stated before, you know, social media is very antisocial. I mean, I've lost some friendships due to social media. I guess they really weren't friends anyway. If they get a little, you know, ruffled because something that I said or posted, I mean, really? On social media, you're going to take offense? I mean, come on. And that's just part of this country right now being so divided. Just so divided. So many groups pitted against each other. You know, that's what they say liberals like to do. They like to categorize everybody in a group, so now you're not an individual, so now you can be, you know, Since you're labeled, now you can be manipulated and used to whatever ends. I mean, I just don't know if this is the change Obama wanted. I mean, is this what he was talking about? But we only have to put up with him for, what, about another 6 months. Unless, of course, something happens and he stays in power. But that's a conspiracy theory, so we won't go there. Meanwhile, I guess they're still killing cops. You know, the terrorists are still doing their things. We had a failed coup in Turkey, but now they're saying maybe that was just all a show, that the president over there was actually behind it. I mean, Venezuela is just really, really struggling down there. But, you know, socialist policies, what can you say? Proof's in the pudding. I guess Bernie Sanders people are still upset. And it just goes on and on. Meanwhile, Hillary gets to walk around, you know, free, not wearing an orange jumpsuit, not being incarcerated. And, you know, if you listen to social media and the radio shows and I guess what's on TV, they're not really hammering on the fact that she skated, that the justice system is broken. I mean, really. And I guess people can't seem to connect the dots that when, you know, these people in Black Lives Matter, whatever, you know, in these downtrodden neighborhoods, it doesn't just have to be black neighborhoods. It could be poor white, poor Hispanic neighborhoods. When they see people in their neighborhood serving time for a lot less crime, and then they see these, you know, these rich folks, these influential folks, these people in power break laws and they get off or maybe get their hand slapped a little bit, they get upset, they get mad, they start tearing things down, burning things, shooting people. Is it justified? You know, is that the answer? Well, not really, but I mean, you know, if you think that you're being, you know, your local government or whatever, it's tyranny. I mean, what do you really expect the system that is involved in the tyranny? You think you're going to go to them and get justice? I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And that's why we have the Second Amendment. People don't want to talk about that because, you know, violence isn't the answer. Yeah, violence is never the answer when you're on the side that's in power and you want to keep things the way you want them. But if you're on the other side and things aren't the way you want them and you can't seem to get anybody to listen to you, you can't seem to get any justice, well, then violence is basically the last resort. And sometimes it's the only resort. I mean, I'm not really advocating violence. I'm just trying to put out a scenario, you know, so you can understand why some people might go that route. I mean, can you imagine what it must have been like when the forefathers were hanging around, all these people going, no, no, don't do violence, and the king and the redcoats, no, no, don't do violence. Well, you know, this country was founded on violence. It's just that simple. There's just no other way to look at it. I mean, I'm just trying to be rational, logical here. I'm not trying to advocate or promote any one thing. I'm just saying, you know, this is just the way it is in the course of human events, you know. It's human nature. So when you hear these people say, you know, don't do this, don't do that, and you know, peace is the only way, and, you know, there's another way. Just remember who's telling you these things. I mean, do you really believe the elections so far has been honest? I mean, the Bernie Sanders people think Hillary cheated. Probably did. But what's going to happen? I mean, look at what happened, you know, the Bush-Dole. I mean, the hanging Chads. I mean, everything is just a farce. My fellow Americans, wake up, smell the tyranny.